Good morning, my family. It is Wednesday morning, and officially summer is gone here. We got down to 29 degrees. We currently are approximately 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving. And the recipes that I've noticed have helped quite a few people on what to do if you're on low carb or if you're a diabetic, and to be able to have that rather as normalized Thanksgiving as you used to know. And that's where I am today, is I am trying to bring that to you. I had somebody ask me, which was a really good question, considering in the southern state I had given you a recipe on bread stuffing, but down here in the south we use a lot of folks down here will use a cornbread stuffing. This video this morning is going to bring you just that. I had promised that I would do a video. I apologize it took so long. I was trying to get some priorities in line, and there's a few things that I'm going to have to cut, but I got all that taken care of, so I'm back to doing what I do best here with y'all, spending some time with you. And it's going to give me a chance to turn this oven on and stay warm at the same time. I also have to do some baking anyways, as I'll be baking, me and my husband, some carrot cake muffins, because today is our 26-year anniversary. So I will be baking him some. It's a tradition we've had since the time we got married. Every year I would make him a carrot cake. However, this time I have, since last year, been doing it for a diabetic, so I will be doing that as well. But I thought I would go ahead and at least get this video done. I also need to make some a new batch of feta cheese, because I just ran out, y'all, and that cheese is so good. I've not, since making my own, I honestly have not had to buy feta cheese. All I've been able to do is just buy a gallon of milk and make my own. It is so nice to have that. So we're going to go ahead and start the cornbread dressing. Now this is going to be in two parts, so I will tell you this will be a long video, because what we're going to do first is make up the cornbread breading, bake that, and then we will go into preparing the stuffing. So I'm going to combine both of these together for you so that you have it both on hand and to be able to make this dressing. So if you only need one part of it, you can always fast forward through the rest or whatever. But I wanted to be able to give you a chance to have both. So that's what we're going to do. And so without further ado, let's go to the kitchen, let's warm things up, and let's make some cornbread stuffing, y'all. Okay, y'all, we're going to start with mixing up the wet ingredients first to a certain extent. I'm also going to have to melt up some butter for us, and that's going to be used later in the recipe. So for right now, I have 4 eggs at room temperature. We're going to need that. We're going to need sour cream, and we need 1 cup of sour cream. I'm going to set this aside here so I can fill up this cup. Now I'm going to do these by the exact measurements to make sure that everything is the right ingredients, because this is a type of mix that you don't want to put too much in. You've got to have the right amount of liquid for this type of baking when it comes to low carb. And that's the same thing that's going to go when it comes to making the stuffing too. So there's our 1 cup of sour cream. And the bread dressing that I did on the last video, I didn't get to share on the taste of that, but I will tell you, y'all, that turned out really, really good. It turned so good that it actually shocked both of my husband on how well it worked and how well it tasted. So that was a definite, we would do that recipe again. But he does happen to like his cornbread stuffing as well, so we're going to see how this one turns out. Only at the end of this video, I will be able to taste test it with you instead of having to wait to hear what the results came out like. So there is our 1 cup of sour cream. And I need 4 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. Three and 4. Oops. And next is going to be the ingredient that's going to make it all worthwhile. The ingredient that would say how we're going to make this like cornbread. I am using a extract or a flavoring that I actually purchased from Amazon. It's called sweet corn. I guess they have flavorings called cornbread, whatever kind of flavoring. You can find it on Amazon. That's where I had found mine. So, and that's where I'm going to get my corn flavoring, because we are using almond flour. So it kind of resembles cornmeal. So we're going to add about 6 drops of this, or use it to your flavor. So I'm going to add my 6 drops. Okay. And now I'm going to take this and whip this all together. And then we're going to set this aside. Make sure I break up all my yolks and just mix this up really, really well. Next we're going to do is mix our dry ingredients together. You want to mix this till it's kind of fluffy. And that's good right there. Now I'm going to get this wet ingredients cleaned up here, because I need to use my measuring cup, and we will come back to do the dry ingredients and mix this all together. Okay, so our next step is adding our dry ingredients. We're going to start out with sifting 2 cups of almond flour. Now, you don't have to sift this if you don't want to. I tend to do it because I want to make sure that there are no chunks in my almond flour when I put it in my bowl. That way I get everything incorporated, blended really nice. So we need 2 cups of this. Last time when I did this last year for Thanksgiving, God love my husband for putting up with trying new things, because, well, it was hard on us. I mean, this was a blow, just like to most of you, when you find out you're a diabetic and find, well, you can't have what you used to anymore. And although things has changed with this new medication he's been basically put on, and we can't stop it, it's out of our control at this point because they're using it for another purpose, we still try to not overdo things. And so we will still use our low carb ways. Basically, it helps maintain our weight on top of it, even though I still end up eating just a little bit more carbs than I used to. I still keep in check because sometimes my weight will get out of hand. So I don't want to get out of that stage. So I will stick with Mediterranean and low carb. So I'm now going to mix this together. Get all these lumps out of here. See all the things at the bottom of it. That's what we're breaking down so that we have a nice cornmeal mix. Now the rest of them I'm just going to do it with my hand because it's going through the wire whisk. There we go. Alright, now we have that. We now need, let's see here, we need 3 tablespoons of sugar substitute. That is optional, y'all. Not a lot of people like sweetened, quote, cornbread. So this is totally optional, and the substitute sugar, you just do what you prefer. It doesn't matter what kind. And I need, let's see here, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Oh, and in the meantime, I have my oven preset at 375 degrees, and I have my cast iron skillet in there heating with it so that my skillet gets nice and hot. So there's my 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I need a 1 teaspoon of salt, and I am using Himalayan sea salt. And at this point, you can use 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper if you wanted to. That is totally optional. I'm leaving it out because basically I've never added black pepper to my cornbread. So this point now is where I'm going to mix everything up really well here in this bowl. And I will, like I always do, leave you the recipes in the description box below for both this mix plus the cornbread stuffing. That way you don't have to go searching around like I had to. It'll all be there together for you, along with the stats, because I will tell you, for the cornbread, this mix makes 10 servings. Per serving, you have 5.4 grams of carbs, 2.4 grams of fiber, equaling 3 net carbs and 1 gram of sugar. So that's about as low of a cornbread y'all are going to get. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and add our dry ingredients to this, or our wet ingredients, I should say, to this dry mix. And then we're going to add a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of melted butter once we get all of this incorporated. I'm going to mix this up at first. Mix this all together. Now this is not going to be like your typical cornbread, y'all. So just know that it's not even, the mix isn't even going to be the same. This is going to take anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes to bake. So, and now we're going to add our 1/2 cup of melted butter, or 1 stick of melted butter into this. Mix this up really well before we put this into our cast iron skillet, which we will be taking out next. This isn't a really hard way of making cornbread either. None of this recipe is actually really hard. And we had used sage sausage the last time in the bread stuffing. I'm actually going to use the leftovers of that. Like I said, I had some left over. So we're going to use that same sausage in this. It just, to me, stuffing and sage go together. We got this mix really done. Now we're going to go ahead and pull our cast iron skillet. And we're going to add a tablespoon of butter in here so that we can coat our pan, actually. Raise this up just a little so you can see this. Now I've got to coat my pan first with the butter in our skillet. Now I'm going to take a brush and brush the sides with this. All the way around. Just like so. And now we're going to take our cornbread mix and put it inside of our pan. Just like we would any other cornbread mix. Okay. Now we're going to pop this in the oven and we're going to bake this for 30 to 35 minutes. And at that point, we will be back after this cools and we will show you the next step to be able to make our dressing. In the meantime, I am going to get those ingredients prepared for you so that we can move on to the next step. Okay, y'all, so we have had our mark at 30 minutes and our cornbread is out of the oven. Now I am testing for doneness and I am seeing so far that this is absolutely done. Yes, so now what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool off. I am actually going to now drop my oven to 350 degrees because that's what I'm going to be cooking the dressing at. But in order to get to the dressing, I have to cool this cornbread down completely because we are going to actually cut this up. We're going to put it on this baking sheet and we're going to again bake this actually at 300. I need to drop it. So I need to bake this at 300 because now we're going to actually kind of dry this like we would breadcrumbs or cubed bread that we're going to use for bread dressing. So it kind of makes no sense, but it will help the liquids to our dressing to absorb a lot better. So I'm going to let this cool off, and then at this point, once this is cooled off, we will be beginning the next step into preparing our cornbread stuffing. So we will be back as soon as I get that cooled off and we will begin our next step. Okay, y'all, so the cornbread has now cooled off enough to work with it, and I tried a piece. I am absolutely going to say I tried a piece and wow, y'all. So the recipe called for, now I don't know if it's the extract that I had or what, but it called for 6 drops. Basically, I used about a tablespoon or a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a quarter of flavoring. That turned out spot on. Honestly, the texture isn't the same as cornbread, but it's close. But that flavor, holy smokes, y'all, I cannot wait to continue this stuffing. So at this point now is where we're going to basically crumble our cornbread. And this is where we're going to bake it to make it a little dry. I could see the point of making this dry is this is a moist cornbread. So we're just going to break this up. And again, remember I've had this at 300 degrees. And we're going to do this for approximately 30 to 35 minutes. Again, just until these are dry. We're not looking to cook it now. We're just looking to basically like dehydrate it. So I'm just doing a light crumble. I'm not doing anything extravagant with this. Just breaking it up as you see. And we're just going to then pop it in the oven and let this dry out. I am doing this whole pan of cornbread. Y'all, if I wanted to do a pan of cornbread, this is my go-to recipe. I'm just going to simply tell you, this will absolutely be my go-to recipe. That is the closest to cornbread I have actually found. You will need that extract flavoring though. Whether you get a cornbread flavoring or the sweet corn, whatever extract. I had the sweet corn flavor. But wow. Absolutely wow. Alright, so our cornbread is now broke up in pieces, and now we're going to put this in the oven at 300 degrees about 30 minutes, and we're going to dry our pieces. At this point, we will be back and we will go ahead and finish on how to make our dressing. All right, my family, so we have currently our cornbread pieces taken out of the oven. We have raised the oven up to 350 degrees, and we're going to let those cool off a bit. When they cool off, they start to dry just a little bit more, so we're going to wait for that. For me, it took approximately 35 minutes. They say in the recipe it takes about 25-30 minutes. That's at the least, so mine took about 30. It's not perfectly dry, and if I really wanted to do that, I could pre-bake this cornbread mix a day ahead of time, run it through my dehydrator for a couple hours, and that will work as well. So I may do that next time, but for now, we're going to use it just as it is. We're going to need a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, and we're going to need a skillet. We're going to start right now with the basic ingredients of sautéing, and let's get started. Let me move this up just a hair for you. All right, so what we're going to do at this moment is we're going to heat our cast iron skillet, because I plan on using this. This was the one from the cornbread, yes, but it's got that flavoring in it and it's not going to hurt anything, so I'm just going to use the same pan. I've mentioned that I am going to be using the sausage that I had used from a previous video I made with you for the bread stuffing. We're actually going to heat that up right quick. As soon as I find out where I put it. Be right back. Okay, y'all. I honestly try to keep all my ducks in a row, but I've told you over a year ago when I started this channel, I am basically in the raw. There's really nothing to hide about me, and so I am not that perfect ducks in a row type of person, so you'll get my mishaps at times, like today. So I'm actually going to I took the sausage out of the freezer. and defrosted it some. It's still kind of cold. So I'm going to just heat this up a bit. And then we're going to set this aside. I'm also going to use, instead of adding butter when it comes to sauteing the vegetables, I'm just going to use the fat that's already in here instead of adding more fat. I'm just going to go ahead and heat this up now. And then we'll set it aside over here. I kind of tried to cut the fats in everything. Sorry about that phone, y'all. Turn that volume down some. Yeah, we're just going to heat this up just to release the fats from this, basically. Because everything's going to get cooked in the casserole dish anyways. Now, the sausage that this requires for is about 3/4 of a pound. That's pretty much what I have left. So, it's not exactly a half pound either. It's a little over. But you add as much sausage as you want to. It does not have to be perfect. But that's what the recipe calls for. So, and if you were going to use a leaner meat of sorts, you can use chicken in here if you wanted to. You could use ground turkey flavored sausage if you wanted to. You could use a lean ground beef and flavor your sausage as well. If you did that, the recipe calls for 1/4 cup of butter. Or you could use olive oil to cut the fats down even more. So, I'm not going to add more fat. I'm just going to use the fat that this is coming with as it is. Now I'm going to take the sausage, leaving the fat behind, and we're going to set this aside for later. Because we're going to saute our vegetables next. I'm going to get you a pot holder here so I can get the rest of this out of here. There we go. Just like that. Well, I thought I had that quiet, y'all. Okay. So, our next step, we are going to saute now with your choice of fat. We're going to saute onions, celery, garlic, and mushrooms if you are using mushrooms in the recipe. And so this is how it goes. We are using 1 medium chopped onion. And by the way, if you make a big batch like this, this stuff does freeze, so you can pre-do this. We are using 3 ribs of chopped celery. Now I am going to keep this low enough because I'm also going to add my garlic, and I am using 3 cloves of minced garlic. Oh, y'all, this smells so good. And we're just going to saute our vegetables. Now, if you find you don't have enough fat in here like I am doing, I'm just going to go ahead and add some olive oil. I am going to choose a healthier fat due to the Mediterranean side. I don't want too much fat in my food, so And I'm just going to saute these up a bit until the onions are translucent and the celery is soft. Now, if you are using fresh mushrooms, this is basically when you would add them. And the mushrooms basically will be chopped, about a cup's worth. But I am actually going to add mushrooms to this for flavor. But I'm going to be using my home canned mushrooms. These are pre-sliced. So I'm just going to strain these. And when I come back, we're just going to chop them up and add it to here. So they won't have to cook very long, basically. So I'm going to let this cook and let it render down into softness. Then I will add this to heat it through. And we will continue with the next step of our stuffing. Okay, y'all. So now this is where I am going to be adding my chopped mushrooms. Because, again, these were already cooked. I canned our mushrooms earlier in the year, back in August, and so I can add this to the flavoring. I love the fact that I have home canned fresh mushrooms. No salt at all added to this, y'all. That looks absolutely amazing. So now we're going to go to our next step. At this point now, in a bowl, I am going to be mixing our dry ingredients, which is our one pan of cornbread. And we're going to put this whole pan inside of this bowl. We want to use the whole batch that we made. Turn my vegetables off. And I did add some of the celery leaves to it. I kind of like that extra bold flavor. So that choice is up to you if you want to or not. There's our dressing, our cornbread mix. Now we're going to add our vegetables inside of our mix. Oh, y'all. There really does need to be smell-o-vision. I'm telling you what. I am now going to add our sausage to our mix. And now our seasonings. We are going to be adding a ½ teaspoon of dry basil. Let's see, we got thyme. Mix that in there. And go by your preference, y'all. Taste your stuffing when you're done to see if the flavor balance is the way you want it. Now, if you're going to use fresh thyme, you're going to use 2 teaspoons. But because I don't have any, mine did not grow very well and it got cold. So we are using 1 full teaspoon of dried. I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary. Now this, I'm actually, oh my gosh, y'all, you could smell this. I am going to be mixing and crushing up my rosemary because I don't like really big pieces of rosemary. So I'm going to just crush mine up just a tad bit. It's starting to smell just like you would regular stuffing, I'm telling you. Now, fresh parsley. We need a cup of fresh parsley. And then you're going to use about maybe a 1/4 cup or so for garnish in the end. That's totally optional if you want. I need about a teaspoon of salt, and I am using Himalayan sea salt. And I realized, y'all, that I used a 1/2 teaspoon mark, not my full. So I'm going to add some of my other ingredients in here back because I didn't use as much as stated. Okay. Now I'm going to add my teaspoon of salt. A 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And I am using, as you've seen, ground black pepper. And before I used a 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more. Okay. And then we are going to be using, if you are using fresh sage, you would need 2 teaspoons, but I am going to be using dried, so I am going to reduce down to 1 teaspoon of dried sage. And in the description, yes, I will be adding the fresh versus the dried in this. And again, this is actually dried out sage, but you can use ground sage if you wanted to. So again, I'm just going to rub my sage so I can get that seasonings to blend in here easily, just like so. And I may go ahead and add just a little bit more sage to this because I happen to like flavor, y'all. Okay. And that looks like that's going to be the end of this. So now we're just going to mix all this together before we add our egg and our broth. And I'm going to carefully mix this up. I didn't get that big of a bowl, which I should have, but okay. And I'm going to have to get a bigger spoon because when I do this next ingredients, I want to be able to have enough bite in the ingredients there. There we go. All right. It's looking just like cornbread stuffing, y'all. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take 2 large eggs at room temperature and we are going to beat those. We're then going to incorporate this into this mixture, and then it calls about 2 cups worth of chicken broth, and we're actually going to pour this just enough to make it moist. We do not want it soggy, just moist, so you might not need the whole cup. And just so you know, that was the reason why we wanted to dry this bread first, because that's going to be the one to absorb the flavoring in here. Again, I am going to be using my home canned chicken broth that was homemade, the bone broth. So I'm going to go ahead and get this prepared. I'm going to get my eggs prepared, and we shall be right back. Okay, y'all, so I'm going to bring this down just a little for you. We have our 2 eggs. I'm using farm fresh eggs. We have one hen out of about a dozen chickens that is actually still laying. And then I have quail eggs, so I can still use farm fresh eggs either way it goes. But I have beaten the 2 room temperature eggs. And we are going to mix that in here with our ingredients. Now, at this point, you wanted to have tasted and tested the flavoring to your dressing to make sure the flavors were there to your liking before you added this egg. So now I'm going to mix this up really good. And then we are going to, at that point, add our broth. Now I am going to lightly grease my baking pan. I'm actually going to be using an olive oil spray. And then remember, it's a 9 by 13 inch spray, so, or 9 by 13 inch pan. Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right, so now we're going to open up our broth. Love that seal sound. And I am just going to, a little at a time, y'all. You do not want to add this all at once. You want to test your moisture level. Again, you are looking for just moist. We do not want this soggy. And it will definitely take more than this, but we're just going to keep going. Add a little more. You're going to do about 1/4 to 1/2 cup at a time, basically. And for me, it looks like about 1 cup's worth of this is going to work. And if it gets too dry while baking, because this is going to bake for about 30-35 minutes again. So if you find that your dressing is looking a little dry while it's baking, if you have any of the broth left over, absolutely use it into your mix and then stir it as you are baking it. So break that down just a little. Now you don't want it dry, but you don't want it soggy. Okay. You're going to have to use your eye on this one, y'all. And everybody's temps are different, humidity levels too. So that's why I said use your eye to figure out which is best for you. So I'm going to leave mine at this. I still have maybe 1/2 cup left over. So if I need it, I will pour it in here as I cook. And if I don't, well then I just, for lunch, I'm going to have some broth. So now we're going to move everything aside and bring up our casserole dish. And then pour the ingredients into our baking dish. Who would have thought that low carbers, diabetics, could have what everybody else has? Just slightly different variation of it, that's all. And I know not everything's going to taste exactly the same, but if I can bring the one to bring it as close as possible, let's do this. It's called, to me, game on. I will figure it out. Many of you have already tried these recipes and found out that that's exactly what I'm doing. This is as close as I can get. There you go, y'all. So now we've got our cornbread stuffing in our pan. we're going to put this in the oven now for 30 to 35 minutes. And at that time, we will be back to give this a taste test and see how this dressing turned out. So we will see you soon. And the cornbread stuffing is finished, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and dish up a little bit of this, and we will be back to talk with you. Alright, my family. So while this cools off for just a minute, I want to go ahead and give you the macros on this. This dressing serves 15. For one serving size, the carbs are 6.9 grams. There's 3.8 grams of fiber, bringing your net carbs to 3.1 grams and 1.5 grams of sugar. So this is a fairly low carb cornbread stuffing. Now let's see if it will measure up to at least as close as we possibly can. There was another version using coconut flour, but honestly, to me, the almond flour would have been more realistic of using in place of cornbread because of its graininess to it. A lot of things I will agree that almond flour just doesn't work in everything, but for this, I would say it would work better than coconut. But I also know that there are some people that are also with nut allergies and stuff, so I will say that this recipe I am using almond flour, so I'm going to go ahead and try this. I've never done it, and we have some for dinner tonight as I am making some baked cod, some fresh green beans that will be sauteed with onion and garlic, and then we're going to have some of this dressing because I want hubby to try this for Thanksgiving as well. Like I said, we already did the bread stuffing. That was absolutely amazing. And now the cornbread stuffing, as I promised one of our subscribers that I would do this for her. So let's see how this turned out. And the smell is absolutely amazing, y'all. It smells just like Thanksgiving. Oh yeah. This can work. Honestly, it can pass off for cornbread stuffing. It is different. I will say that. And you can take, to me, I probably would have eliminated the sweet. I mean, that's just me. Not every Southerner likes sweet cornbread. But I would probably, next time I make this, eliminate the I think it was 3 tablespoons or so of sugar. I wouldn't even add it. But for those of you who do like it sweet, this worked out great. I mean, wow. I'm actually impressed. This actually works. So, again, I will be putting in the description box below. 1 minute. I will put the recipes for first the cornbread and then the directions on how to do that. Again, you can do that the day before. Make your cornbread, allow it to cool. It would probably be a whole lot easier than trying to do it all in one day. Or it is absolutely possible to do it in one day like I did. So, and honestly, you could be, if you did this the night before, you can actually leave the cornbread out all night, let it dry up a bit, and then bake it and dry it some more too. Or you can use a dehydrator like I did. There's other ways of drying this. This turned out really, really good, y'all. And this would be a recipe that I would absolutely use to make a better low carb for diabetic Thanksgiving. My goal this year versus last year. Last year I was so lost in how do I prepare a Thanksgiving for my husband. Some of the things I served, I'm going to tell you, I did not like. I regretted after I made it, and I vowed this year to not do that. I vowed this year to be as close to normal as I could possibly be. And if there was anybody that can do it, I can do that. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I do have some more feta cheese to make today, and I also have to do some cupcakes for our anniversary because I have a tradition to keep. So at this point, I am going to end this video. If there is others, and I'm going to ask you this question because I'm sure that there are other recipes that you're looking for if you would like to know. I'm going to go ahead while I'm with you. I'll give you a short description of some things that you can use in variation for your Thanksgiving meals in replacement for a diabetic. And here is my list. And a lot of tradition Thanksgiving tables, you will have mashed potatoes and gravy. For those who are diabetic, you can replace those mashed potatoes. Instead of using a potato, you can use a mashed turnip or mashed cauliflower. Both taste just as good in placement of a mashed potato, and you can use a low-carb gravy using chicken broth flavoring and xanthan gum as your thickener instead of a cornstarch or a prepackaged mix. That is an easy fix. You can use sauteed green beans like I am using for tonight. Saute them in some olive oil with some chopped or minced onion and some crushed or minced garlic. That is another variation. I've already given you your cranberries that are sugar-free along with your two now variations of bread stuffing or cornbread stuffing. Now for me, my family, we are Norwegian, so I use a rice stuffing. However, when I do that stuffing with my husband, I will use the Parish rice. It is a little bit more lower glycemic than any other rice, but it's still very limited to how much he can have of that. So these are a good variation in replace of that rice even, or that dressing. And then you have your turkey. Well, y'all, the turkey's a free-for-all, let's face it. Some people, especially in the South, you will use green bean casserole. I do know that there are low-carb versions of green bean casserole. Just look around for those. But if I have to, and you are having a hard time finding that recipe, please let me know and I will go digging for you and show you how to make that version. Rolls, again, there are variations of rolls that you can use low carb to make for Thanksgiving, and I think I might have, or not, I'm going to be looking into that. I will see if I had a low-carb version of dinner rolls for you. And if not, we will find it and I will make that as well. I can't think of anything else besides the stuffing, cranberries, potatoes, green beans, turkey, dinner rolls. Definitely you can have deviled eggs. And if there's something else, please let me know. Let me know if there's something that you have in a traditional family that you would like to have, but you're unable to think of how you can variate it into a more friendly for low carb or diabetics. Your help by letting me know helps me to be able to give you more content in this area because the holidays are coming. We don't have just Thanksgiving, but we have Christmas as well. And for me, for Christmas, I will do a charcuterie board for like Christmas Eve. And then on Christmas Day, we have our traditional Christmas dinner. So I know how to accommodate this year on both areas, along with Thanksgiving. So let me know if there's something I can help you with. And in the meantime, I'm hoping what I am presenting to you is helping you be able to put normality as much as possible on your table. Until next time, I look forward to many more videos before the holidays come around with you. Mwah, much love to you. from Parton's Heritage Homestead.